Good day, learners. Welcome to our science class. In today's lesson, we will discuss the two types of changes in matter. These are physical changes and chemical changes. Okay. Let us start. It is important to understand the difference between chemical and physical changes. Some changes are obvious, but there are some basic ideas you should know. Physical changes are usually about physical states of matter. On the other hand, chemical changes happen on a molecular level when you have two or more molecules that interact. Chemical changes happen when atomic bonds are broken or created during chemical reactions. An atomic bond is a chemical bonding responsible for the interaction between atoms and molecules. Atomic bonding will be further discussed once you go to your Chemistry 9. Atoms and molecules will be discussed thoroughly at the next meeting. Today we will be focusing on defining the physical and chemical change operationally and citing the different evidence, and explaining how these changes affect the composition of a material at the molecular level. Before we go on, let us recall a little bit about physical change. In the simplest explanation, it only changes the appearance of a substance, not its chemical composition, and no new substance is formed. Phase changes also refer to physical changes. It shows that the temperature and kinetic energy can affect the phase of the matter. Changing in temperature and level of kinetic energy leads to the following: evaporation, condensation, freezing, sublimation, melting, and desublimation. Let us identify the phase changes under increasing temperature. I want you to identify the missing term by choosing your answers inside the box. 1. Solid turns to liquid. Okay, the answer is melting. 2. Liquid turns to gas. Okay, the answer is evaporation. For decreasing the temperature may result in the following. 3. Liquid turns to solid. The answer is freezing or solidifying. 4. Gas turns to liquid. The correct answer is condensation. There are also some special conditions in phase changes such as the P5. Solid turns to gas. The correct answer is sublimation. Sublimation in chemistry refers to the phase transition in which matter changes state from a solid immediately into a gas, without passing through an intermediate liquid phase. Sublimation occurs due to the absorption of heat through solid materials. Solid materials absorb heat, which excites the constituent molecules. Examples: snow, the ice sublime during the winter season without melting, mothballs sublime. And room fresheners, which are used in toilets sublimes. And for the last is gas turns to solid. The correct answer is desublimation or deposition. Desublimation or deposition is the phase change from gas directly to solid, with no intermediate liquid phase. It happens when the heat energy in gas was removed. Common example that we can have is frost formation in home freezers. So, a common physical change occurs when matter changes from one phase to another without chemical reactions occurred. Now I want you to observe this. What do you think is this? Very good. The answer is fireworks or fireworks display. Have you experienced seeing a fireworks display? What have you commonly observed during a fireworks display? All right. We commonly observe the different colors due to its explosion. We also hear loud sound during the explosion. Now, did you know that explosion of fireworks is an example of chemical change? During a chemical change, substances are changed into different substances. In other words, the composition of the substance changes. Therefore, new substance is formed. Let us talk about the evidences of chemical changes. How can you tell whether a change is a chemical change? Let us have some examples here. When you cut an apple and you left it uneaten, what have you commonly observed to the apple? Correct. There is a color change. It turns brown. The reason is that a chemical change has occurred when food spoils. The food spoils when the composition of the food reacts to oxygen. This process is known as oxidation. Another is that when acidic substances, including water, come in contact with metals, such as iron and/or steel. Rust begins to form. Rust is the result of corroding, damaged metal due to chemical reactions with acid, steel after the iron particles have been exposed to oxygen and moisture. Next is energy, absorbed or released. Another sign of a chemical change is the release or gain of energy by an object. Many substances absorb energy to undergo a chemical change. Like in baking a cake. Energy is absorbed during chemical changes involved in cooking. When you bake a cake, energy is absorbed by the batter as it changes from a runny mix into a cake. On the other hand, energy can also be released during a chemical change. Like the fireworks that were mentioned earlier. It releases energy in a form of light and sound that we observed. Another evidence is odor changes. Have you also experienced smelling a rotten egg? Of course, its smell is different from a fresh egg. Again, when food spoils, they undergo a chemical change. The change in odor is a clue to the chemical change. So, when you smell an odd odor in foods such as chicken, pork, or mayonnaise, you know that the food has undergone a chemical change. With that, you can use this clue to avoid eating spoiled food and becoming ill. Next is the production of gases or solids. It is different from the concept of the phase changes in the physical change. In physical changes, the temperature is involved, while in chemical change, chemical reactions are involved. So, the result of these chemical reactions can be the production of gases in a form of smoke or bubbles. Example, as wood burns, it turns into a pile of ashes and gases that rise into the air. This gas particularly is the carbon dioxide. After the wood is burned, it cannot be restored to its original form as a log. Another clue that a chemical change has occurred in the formation of a solid. A solid that separates of solution during a chemical change is called a precipitate. Always remember, in chemical change there is a chemical reaction that happens. One of the best examples of precipitation reactions is the chemical reaction between potassium chloride and silver nitrate, in which solid silver chloride is precipitated out. This is the insoluble salt formed as a product of the precipitation reaction. And for the last sign of chemical changes is that it is not easily reversed. How do physical and chemical changes differ from each other? Think about ice for a moment. After the ice melts into liquid water, you can refreeze it into solid ice if the temperature drops. Freezing and melting are physical changes. While the substances produced during chemical changes, however, cannot easily change back into the original substances. Like the example I gave earlier, which is about the burning of woods. After the wood is burned, it cannot be restored to its original form as a log. The most important thing for you to remember is that in a physical change the composition of a substance does not change, and in a chemical change the composition of a substance does change. Take note of this. The matter is never destroyed or created in chemical reactions. The particles of one substance are rearranged to form a new substance. The same number of particles that exist before the reaction exists after the reaction. To summarize the lesson, I want you to complete the paragraph. Type your answer in the comment section. Phase change is the change of state of substance undergoing from one form to another. The chemical composition of the substance is retained even when it undergoes phase change. Matter undergoes phase change due to the change in temperature. The higher the blank and the kinetic energy, the faster the tiny particles move, resulting to the farther distance of the particles from each other. The lower the temperature and the blank, the particles move slowly, leading to a closer distance of the particles. As liquid water evaporates, its temperature blank and its kinetic energy increases. As the water vapor in the form of clouds condenses, its blank decreases and its kinetic energy blank. When ice melts, its temperature increases and its kinetic energy blank. As liquid water solidifies, both its temperature and kinetic energy blank. You can pause this video to answer. Here are the answers. That's end the discussion about physical and chemical changes. See you next week.